This is Chapter 3 of Give Me Something That'll Haunt Me When You're Not Around, written by Taizi and narrated by Inulp. Good morning, Leonardo. Usagi! There are so many snacks in here, oh my gosh! What the heck? I'm heavily medicated, it's not fair to do nice things, I'll cry. Tell your aunt I said thank you! And the blueberry buckle was so good. I shared some with Mikey and he wants the recipe like yesterday. We actually ate like all of it in one sitting. Ref was pissed, lol. Yuichi lays in bed, smiling at his phone for a while before he gets around to pulling his brain cells together to form a reply. He starts and stops typing so many times that it's embarrassing. He'll pretend he didn't do that. Those snacks were specifically meant to aid in your recovery. So, I don't know how familiar you are with baby brothers, but typically Mike gets whatever he wants. Yuichi thinks of his youngest cousin Jomei, tiny and soft with huge gray eyes, and unfortunately already self-aware at 4 years old. If Michelangelo, Yuichi thinks he remembers the boy being called, is even half as powerful as Jomei, then Leonardo's blueberry buckle didn't stand a chance. Fair enough. It's a good thing he woke up early. He doesn't get anything else done for hours. Leonardo is an enthusiastic conversation partner at all times, and his texts manage to translate that energy effortlessly. Typically, Yuichi lets his friends save their contact IDs in his phone however they want. Leonardo isn't there to do it himself, but Yuichi makes the rookie mistake of giving him free rein anyway. So Leonardo insists his number go in under Neon Leon, and Yuichi has something to roll his eyes at every time they message each other. It also makes him feel warm. There's an affectionate little tug in his chest at this clear proof of Leonardo in his hands. Now that he has this unfettered access to the very same person he wants to talk to all the time, Yuichi checks his phone a lot more than he used to over the next couple days. He even keeps it in his waist apron pocket at work, which some of the other servers do, which technically isn't against the rules because none of them have abused the privilege so far. Yuichi will feel extremely bad and guilty if he's the one who abuses the privilege and ruins it for everyone, but when it vibrates in his pocket while he's going outside to dump the trash anyway, he might as well linger for an extra minute and check his messages. Right? Right? One afternoon, Senor Hueso catches Yuichi lingering in the employee lounge after his lunch break is well over, moving at a snail's pace back toward the dining room with his nose buried in his phone. He almost walks right into his boss's chest, saved only by the last-minute sense of someone else's immediate presence that Karasu Tengu-sensei mercilessly trained into him years ago. So he freezes a few inches away instead, and his eyes dart up to the skeleton yokai's unamused expression. Oh boy. Senor Hueso is generally a very patient person, but he's no nonsense about work. Is Yuichi in trouble? Is he going to get fired? I'm so sorry, Yuichi whispers. But instead of scolding him, Senor Hueso only gives a pointed look to the phone in Yuichi's hands and says sternly, "You tell Pepino to give it a rest. He's still recovering from a concussion. He doesn't need to be staring at a screen all day. Madre, please be a good influence." "You don't know I was talking to Leonardo," Yuichi says defensively. He has other friends he could be texting. Then he takes a second look at the older yokai's face and backtracks immediately. Yes, sir, I'll tell him. Good. Now you have tables seated in your section. It's a dismissal if Usagi's ever heard one, so he scurries into the dining room with 5 times his initial urgency, sending one last message before he shoves his phone away. Senor says no more screen time while you're recovering from a concussion. What? How even? He doesn't know you're talking to me. Thank you. That's exactly what Yuichi said. He makes it a point to actually focus for the rest of his shift, but it's a Tuesday afternoon and things are slow. Sunita is off for the day, and Chao is studying at the bar when they're not actively pouring drinks, and those are the only 2 coworkers Yuichi is familiar enough to strike up conversation with, so he keeps to his own section and works quietly. It's been brought up a couple times now, in passing, Leonardo's condition. Apparently, even a month after the invasion, he's still healing. Yuichi didn't know the symptoms of a concussion could last whole weeks. He doesn't really know much about Kappa or whatever manner of creature Leonardo and his brothers are, but for a head injury to be that severe... Suddenly, the sight of Raphael's damaged eye jumps to the front of Yuichi's memory. The clean hole in the big turtle's rock-solid carapace. What the heck could have done that? What happened to them? His brain is coming up with nightmare fuel like that's its job. Something horrible went down behind the scenes while Yuichi was completely ignorant. While Yuichi was waiting tables and getting into trouble with Kitsune and Gen and helping with the tomato harvest, Leonardo and his family were in almost certain danger. And Yuichi didn't know. He plops down on a stool at the bar at the tail end of his last break for the day, and Chow wordlessly slides him a cranberry juice on the rocks. "How do I get my friend to tell me about something that may or may not be a sensitive subject?" he blurts. "Have you tried asking him about it?" The Ram Yokai replies in a tone that manages to be both over-exaggerated and monotone. Yuichi doesn't even know why he bothers. He taps his phone on the counter a few times, takes a big gulp of cranberry juice that he pretends is something much stronger, and goes for it. "I need to talk to you." Ooh, ominous. "It's not ominous, weirdo. I have to go now, but I'm off at 7. Any normal person would have taken that last text at face value, but Yuichi isn't dealing with a normal person, is he? So maybe he should have been expecting it when he leaves the restaurant a few hours later and finds Leonardo waiting for him outside. He's leaning heavily on one of his katana, either in an attempt to look cool or because he's having trouble staying upright. Yuichi is not inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt. "What the freak are you doing here?" he blurts. His flat tone definitely does not convey his shock, but he's feeling too much right now to articulate any of it properly. Leonardo laughs out loud. It's a different sound than it used to be, hoarse and a little restrained, like he's trying to remember he doesn't have to be quiet. But it's still bright, and it makes Yuichi's heart do backflips in his chest. He's wearing a hooded sweatshirt that looks way too big to belong to him, a deep maroon color, repaired with clumsy pink stitches along the shoulders. One of the sleeves is hiked up to Leonardo's elbow due to the unwieldy cast on his left forearm, covered in doodles and stickers. The hoodie is unzipped on the front, so Yuichi can make out the cracks in Leonardo's plastron, spiderweb lines cutting cruelly through the armored scutes. It's hard to imagine the kind of pressure it would have taken to crush his shell, the same kind that drilled that hole through Raphael's. What happened to them? The skin around Leonardo's neck and the side of his face is still discolored from what must have been pretty nasty bruises, and there are puffy red marks where scars haven't settled yet. He looks older than the last time Yuichi saw him. But he's here, and he's smiling, a footprint of that laughter left on his face. And now he's... oh boy, he's starting to list to the side. Yuichi crosses the distance between them at a run, catching Leonardo by the arm before he can topple all the way over. "I don't see what's so funny," Yuichi says waspishly, afraid to let him go. "You wouldn't," Leonardo says cheerfully. He's leaning heavily against Yuichi's shoulder, his hand is shaking as he sheathes his katana at his back. Seriously, what the heck is he doing here? "Everyone's cussed me out at least once since I woke up. Add you to the list." Flustered, Yuichi says, "I did not do that." "You did! You said the frick word!" Yuichi rolls his eyes and begins the process of dragging Leonardo toward the nearest bench, staring down anyone who drifts into their path. The tree yokai already reclining there takes one look at Yuichi's expression, grabs her bag, and takes off without a word. Maybe he'll feel bad about being impolite later. He doesn't have any room for it in his brain right now. He doesn't even think he remembers to breathe until Leonardo is safely sitting down, slumping onto the bench seat like someone 5 times his age. Yuichi crouches down in front of him, giving him a hard look. If he needs medical attention, Yuichi will kick run-of-the-mill's doors down and drag Senor Hueso out here by his tie. Who needs a part-time job anyway? But Leonardo seems to be okay now that he's caught his breath, and he's still grinning, like Yuichi is the best thing he's seen in days. "Do you use your scary face to get what you want all the time, or is this a special occasion?" the turtle asks coyly. "I'm beginning to understand why everyone has cussed you out since you woke up this morning," Yuichi replies, sitting back on his heels. Something tight that's been clenched in his chest like a closed fist has suddenly loosened, a letting go when Yuichi didn't even know he'd been holding on. He's missed Leonardo, Being around him has always been so easy, even when looking directly at him is like staring into the sun, even when Yuichi's words get lost somewhere between his head and his throat, and he ends up spending most of their conversations just listening and watching. Not since this morning, Leonardo interjects. Can you imagine everyone getting on my case like that all in one day? That would just be bullying. I meant since the coma. There it is again. Little breadcrumbs, teasing scraps of information. Yuichi gazes up at him and has at least a dozen questions he wants to ask. That's why Leonardo is here, even if he doesn't realize it. Yuichi's curiosity inadvertently dragged his friend from the safety of his home and the safe harbor of his family to the chaotic streets of the hidden city. The trip itself seems to have been hard on him, when usually it's little to no effort to step through a portal between one location and the next. His forehead gleams with sweat, and he's breathing a little heavy like he just ran a marathon. He's a pale shade of the vibrant boy Yuichi first met a year ago. He looks like he regrets bringing up the coma. But he's still here. Abruptly, Yuichi doesn't want to ask any of his questions. He just wants his friend to be here. When Leonardo says, "So, what's so serious you dragged me all the way out here?" Yuichi pushes himself to his feet and takes the seat on the bench beside him with a sigh. "Nothing, Leonardo," he lies. "I just wanted to talk to you. You're the one who jumped to conclusions." Some tense line in Leonardo's shoulders that Yuichi hadn't noticed before seems to go lax, even as he rolls his eyes. "I'm a ninja, we jump, it's a whole thing. Anyway, more importantly, did I see a stall selling dumplings down the street or nah?" "There's no way I can convince you to stay on this bench, is there?" Yuichi knows the answer already, and he's getting up before Leonardo has a chance to say anything, offering him his hands. When Leonardo takes them, Yuichi hauls him up onto his feet. They stand there together for a moment, neither of them letting go. Yuichi doesn't even feel the usual need to spring away from him before he gets too close, because he's missed this stupid guy, and his stupid face and his stupid big hands and the stupid way Yuichi feels around him. Whatever happened to him happened. Yuichi can't change that now, and if Leonardo wants to tell him about it, he will. But Yuichi gets the feeling that what Leonardo really wants right now is to feel normal. To feel like maybe one thing in his life is the same as it's always been. "Dumplings," Yuichi announces, with all the enthusiasm of his little cousins faced with the unjust trial of bedtime. "If you fall on your face, I'm leaving you there." "If I don't, you're buying," Leonardo quips back. Yuichi scowls, remembers he's still holding Leonardo's hands, and then sort of forgets how to person for long enough that Leonardo lets go and goes a few steps without him. His brain literally goes offline for a minute. That's never happened before. "No, it's okay," he hears Leonardo saying to someone on the street nearby. "It's not his fault. He's never been the same, not since the storm." For bristling, Yuichi hustles to catch up, hopefully before Leonardo has done any actual lasting damage to his reputation. He has an image to maintain around here. He's Usagi Miyamoto's direct descendant, and Miyamoto was never anything but cool. "Quit making up lore about me," he hisses. "Quit being weird," Leonardo replies, clearly enjoying himself. "Dumplings!" Yuichi scowls, but falls into step beside him anyway. This is the guy he missed so much? As soon as he has that uncharitable thought, he regrets it. He thinks about April saying he always seemed pissed off to have Leonardo around, and darts a quick look at the striped turtle ambling along beside him. Leonardo doesn't seem put off by Yuichi's prickly attitude, but still, it wouldn't hurt to make sure. Yuichi waits until they've paid the elderly yokai woman running the food stall for 2 paper plates of crispy gyoza, so he has something to do with his hands, something to focus on besides his awkward tongue, to say, "I'm glad you're back." Leonardo glances sidelong at him, crunching through a dumpling unself-consciously. His mouth is full, but his expression very clearly says, "Say what now?" "Here, I mean," Yuichi tells his plate. "Back here. I didn't even know where you were. I'm just glad you're better." They walk the length of the block before Leonardo replies. "I wouldn't worry about us, Usagi. Me and my brothers can take a hit. You could even say we were made for it." That's a strange sentiment, and something bitter comes and goes across Leonardo's face before Yuichi can make sense of it, as swift and darting as the little minnows that flit through the creek that winds past his family's farm. Then Leonardo adds, sounding much more like himself, "My stupid arm is all that's slowing me down now." "Considering it was broken in 8 places, I would take 6 more weeks in a cast as a solid win," someone says from directly behind them. Yuichi doesn't jump in shock. He freezes, rabbit still. Leonardo doesn't seem surprised at all. He just groans theatrically. "Oh no, it's the consequences of my actions," Donatello snorts. Because that's who it is, Yuichi realizes as he turns to get a good look at him. "You can't just run off, Nardo," the purple-masked turtle says. His tone implies that this is not a suggestion. "You get why that's uncool and unfair, right? Like I don't have to explain that very simple elementary-grade concept to you?" "I left a note," Leonardo argues in his own defense. "You sure did," Donatello replies, so level and calm that it sets Yuichi's whiskers on edge, because that level calmness is very much a thinly veiled promise of bodily harm. "You left a note on your door that said, 'Do not disturb beauty sleep in progress,' and then you left one in your empty bed that you just drew a winky face on." "I realized I didn't need any more beauty sleep, Dontron. I decided to save some for the rest of you sad scrubs. You're welcome." "How magnanimous." Beyond the color-coded masks and the dramatically different body shapes and skin tones, there's another easy way to tell the Hamato siblings apart. All of them have brown eyes in varying shades. Michelangelo's are warm, temperate honey, while Raphael's are darker and richer, edging into red. Leonardo and Donatello, the twins, have identical golden eyes, piercing and impossibly bright even in the semi-dark of falling dusk. Under the warm lantern light, with their defining characteristics all but overshadowed, it would probably be easy to mistake them for a perfect mirror of each other. But Yuichi could never make that mistake. Donatello's eyes are different, because the way he looks at Yuichi is different, especially now. Where Leonardo was delighted to see Yuichi for the first time since before the invasion, Donatello is looking at Yuichi like he's a clear and present threat. Yuichi doesn't know what Donatello has to feel threatened about. He has a good grasp of his own abilities, and he's self-aware enough to admit that Donatello could definitely take him in a fair fight. Any of his siblings probably could, up to and including his sister, out of stubbornness and spite alone. Yuichi is the one who feels hunted, like a tiny fluffy animal that was just sighted by a bored, hungry hawk, all because of the cold, calculating gold in Donatello's eyes. Then Leonardo plants his good hand on the side of his twin's face and shoves it an arm's length away. Donatello sputters and flails, and Leonardo talks over him with the ease of years of practice. "Thanks for the dumplings," Leonardo tells him. "See you when I'm finally ungrounded someday 7 years from now." Yuichi nods, offering a little wave. He watches Leonardo unsheath a katana and form a bright spinning blue portal with one swift downward slice through the air. Donatello is griping at him in harsh undertones, and Leonardo is giving back as good as he gets, but it doesn't escape Yuichi that Donatello has gravitated protectively to Leonardo's bad side, and Leonardo is leaning his weight against his brother like he's actually much more tired than he was willing to let on. Leonardo needs a break. He needs fresh air. He needs to not disappear again, even if it probably won't actually be for 7 years. Before he can second-guess himself, Yuichi blurts, "I'm off on Friday. You should come to the farm. One of our Tokage's eggs just hatched, so we have babies to play with, and they're really cute." Donatello makes an antagonistic noise under his breath and hauls Leonardo through the portal. Before he disappears, Yuichi watches Leonardo's whole body light up, a grin splitting his face in half. "It's a date," Leonardo calls cheerfully in the seconds before he's gone. The portal closes. Yuichi stares at the empty space where it used to exist, while the word date bounces around in his head like a free-floating balloon filled with screaming instead of the more traditional helium. Important, time-sensitive, hypothetical question. When you make plans with your friend and he calls it a date, how do you ask what he means by that without sounding like an insane person? Oh my gosh! My throat is dead.